It announced that Morant's been suspended for 25 games. If you don't know, he went on Instagram Live again we talked about it briefly. We talked about it last week. You're right. We did talk about it last week. The announcement wasn't out for how long the suspension was going to be. Morant, with his guns, suspended for 25 games. The NBA Players Association put out a statement basically saying they're going to look into some ways or maybe Ja to appeal it, try to give him all his resources he can. I don't think the suspension will change, to be completely honest with you, but I personally have some issues with the suspension because it based off previous precedents, I feel like it's a lot personally, and I feel like I'm in a minority there. A lot of people probably wanted it to be a lot more, but I think the reason a lot of people wanted it to be a lot more was simply for the troll of Twitter, and I don't know if that's really how they felt, to be honest with you. And the main reason I can say this is because everybody brings up the Gilbert Arenas situation. He was suspended for 50 games. It was under David Stern, whatever. And everyone that says David Stern would be a whole lot harder than Evan Silver was. But the reason Gilbert Arenas was suspended for those 50 games is because he had that gun on NBA property, right? He brought it to a locker room. That's a big no-no, understandable. Ja's case, it was only on the internet. We'll get to that. In 2006 or 7, I might have the year slightly wrong, but Steven Jackson was suspended for only, let me see if I think I wrote it down right here. Steven Jackson was suspended for 7 games, and he pled guilty for a felony charge of criminal recklessness for firing a gun outside of a strip club in Indiana. He actually fired a gun. The charge that they initially charged him with, they actually brought it down to just criminal recklessness, but it was an actual felony charge. Broke the law, felony charge, fired his gun. Under David Stern, since everybody loves to bring up David Stern and how hard he would be on Ja, suspended 7 games. Broke the law, court case, pled guilty, 7 games. Fired the gun, 7 games. 7 games. Ja was on live, 25. 2 things I think that goes into this and why the NBA did it. One, I think just in general, as we all know, social media is way bigger now than it was when Steven Jackson's situation was going on. And 2, we actually see it. It's on video, on social media. We didn't see Steven Jackson pull that trigger. We didn't see Steven Jackson with the gun. We just basically read the report about it. And I think that's the big difference. But this goes back to what I talked about last week with, this don't feel right to me personally, because technically not a single law or NBA rule was broken. It's just a really bad look. Now, truthfully, it's just a really bad look and some poor gun safety. And that got you 25 game suspension on top of some very arbitrary, in the NBA statement, he has to go through some stuff to prove he's learned a lesson. Who knows what the heck that is? And the only reason I think, for me personally, it feels weird or off is because we all know the only reason Morant wasn't on an All-NBA team is because of his suspension this past season, when he missed those, I want to say it was 8 games due to the suspension. That's the only reason he didn't make an All-NBA team, is because he had that gun issue, and I think the media members were afraid to vote for him for an All-NBA team. Because if he made that All-NBA team, he's eligible for a Supermax. Instead, he signed for a 5-year, $194 million contract, which is set to begin this season. But if he had made an All-NBA team, he probably would have made at least another $40 million attached to that. We would have been looking at like a 5-year, $239, $240 deal. And he missed out on basically $40 million. Was he dumb? Yes. Was it stupid to go on live a second time with another gun? Also, yes. Do I think this suspension was a little overkill? Also, yes. 2 things can be true. It could be a dumb decision and a dumb mistake and action on his part, and in my opinion, overreaction from the NBA. Both things can be true. And these are the consequences that he just has to live with. I'm not making an excuse for it. I just disagree. It is what it is. It's now the situation he's dealt with. He has to deal with it. There's consequences to every action. Every reaction has a reaction. Every action has a consequence in life. That's just literally what life is. You don't know the consequences to your actions until the consequences are there. I just happen to disagree with these consequences because technically, once again, no law was broken. No NBA rule was violated. It's just a really, really bad look and poor gun safety. It is what it is. I just thought that, well, I was listening to Zach Lowe on the Low Post, and he brought up that Steven Jackson point. And honestly, he felt the same way. He feels like that man fired a gun and pled guilty to a felony charge, 7 games. 25 for Instagram Live. I get it. And I see what you're saying. The NBA is a brand. Yeah, I get it. Protect your brand, VR. Will, excellent question. Do you think if LeBron did this, it would be different? 2 things to answer that. One, it would never be LeBron. LeBron has built a media. He's built up himself good enough to know not to make mistakes this bad. But yes, I do think it would be different. Because there's no real precedent to this situation, I think they just can do whatever they wanted to do, to be completely honest with you. I think they could do just whatever they wanted to do because it's honestly new territory. Social media age having real impact on people's lives. And I think Ja might be one of the first NBA players to feel that impact. We've seen it happen. People go viral for some, how can I put this? We've seen people go viral for racist comments and stuff like that. And it turns out they lose their job and then their company puts out a statement. We don't support bigotry and racism like this. We've seen that happen countless times on social media. Social media can affect your real life. And in this case, in Ja Morant's case, social media affected his real life. Do I agree with it? Not necessarily. Is it a double standard? Could be. And that's just life. I'm okay with that. I just wanted to share that. I'm okay with sitting with it. And honestly, truthfully, for real, I'm okay if you disagree. If you disagree, we still cool. Look, VR said he glad he didn't get paid. We still cool, VR. I just disagree. And that's cool. That's cool.